Loni Anderson is dead. It happens to the best of us, but sometimes it feels worse because it's someone we invited into our home every week. And let's face it, Jennifer Marlowe was one such guest. Loni Anderson may have passed, but Jennifer Marlowe lives forever, just like the rest of her wacky castmates on our favorite radio station, WKRP in Cincinnati. In her honor, let's tune into the show that had her bust out into stardom. I'm Victor, and straight out of the Jen Experience, the subtle but successful sitcom that always makes the top of my list, and the character who kept it all together. Jennifer Marlowe and WKRP, the show that convinced us all we wanted to work in radio, and hoped the receptionist looked like this. The show was the brainchild of Hugh Wilson, and is based on his experience at WQXI in Atlanta. He even wrote the lyrics to that soft, unmistakable theme song that was fully realized by Steve Carlisle. Workplace comedies were working for Mary Tyler Moore's MTM Productions. Sitcoms in the office allowed for a wider range of dynamic personalities and characters to interact with, more so than on family ones. But hospitals were a dime a dozen. Radio stations were something completely different. There had been Good Morning World on CBS for one season, but that was 12 years earlier. So this new ensemble in the modern world of 1978 would have something different to offer. The call letters would be WKRP, so its nickname would be Crap. Ideal for a station at the bottom of the rankings. The location was Cincinnati, because it rhymed well with the P.
Cincinnati WKRP.
Casting was underway, and the decision to record on videotape was an important one. It meant that they could get a better deal on music licensing rights than they could on film. But more on that later, stay tuned. With their relatively large cast of 8, they began production in 3-camera format. On shooting days, they would record twice a day, one dry recording and one with a live audience. This process gave them 2 distinct options of takes to choose from. The dry take was in the afternoon, where live audiences didn't work well anyway, where you got one performance, one delivery. The second taping happened at 7 p.m., where the nighttime audiences were raring to go and brought a lot of excitement. And with that kind of energy, the cast was charged and usually wrapped within 90 minutes. That's unheard of. This meant everyone was out by 8:30 p.m. and could enjoy the rest of their evening. Hughes remembers Laverne and Shirley, filming nearby, would shoot until about 2 in the morning, and had said there must have been something toxic going on that set. Debuting on September 18, 1978, the antics of the worst radio station in town, changing its format from easy listening to top 40 right in the middle of the morning drive time, was sure to find an audience. But after only 8 episodes, CBS shelved the entire series. And some of the best episodes that would go down in history, including the turkey drop, had been part of those early 8. Thank God for fans who brought it back to life. Audiences loved it, even if it constantly sat low in the television ratings. A fervor of phone calls and even letters by disc jockeys who praised it for being one of the few representations of them and their work environment out there, and a fairly accurate one at that. This caused CBS to put it back on the schedule, and with no cast or story changes, it was allowed to find an audience. The ratings would increase, but it would be a rough run. It was never a runaway success, and the writers had some real challenges depicting the situations of life in radio. The time they took to define the personalities on the show, develop their relationships, and find a groove with story and the characters didn't help much either. They ultimately found fans, but producers played scheduling roulette with this show that never allowed its potential. In the end, it had been in 12 different time slots. But even if it couldn't become a hit, it was a true diamond in the rough. It didn't need to be the most popular, just the most genuine. And that had a lot to do with the cast, especially Anderson's Jennifer Marlowe.
Hugh is instrumental with me in creating Jennifer, because she was kind of window dressing, and Hugh said, let's make her Lana Turner and the smartest person in the room. And so he made I spoke 7 languages. I completely cut everybody off at the knees if they came on to me. And yet I took Mr. Carlson like a mother. I took care of him. You know, I protected him. I loved everybody. I nurtured everybody, but I didn't do anything. And, you know, and so I dated men with lots of money.
Yeah.
And I had unexplained wealth, and I just loved being at the station and taking care of my brood, really, was my character. And that's because Hugh said, you know, let's have the glamorous woman be the smartest woman.
The producers made their first mistake by moving WKRP away from the dream spot after MASH to earlier in prime time, hoping the sexy receptionist would be what the eyes of young boys would need to draw more viewers to the show. But Jennifer was beyond sex appeal, and the audience was going to be a diverse one, a more mature one. She summed up her character perfectly in the previous clip. Disguised behind the stereotypical blonde locks, Loni Anderson's character could surprise you in every episode. When writers figured her out, viewers would notice, subconsciously at first, that Jennifer might date older men, have inexplicable wealth.
How much do you need?
You know what? I don't know, really. I'd imagine around $500.
I'll get my purse. I don't take dictation.
Not bring coffee or take dictation at work or much else, but she was the glue that kept the rest of the cast together. And from killing one another.
Oh, good morning, Mr.
Like
Carlson.
Holly Golightly of Breakfast at Tiffany's, Jennifer's character had run away from her rural Appalachian upbringing and created a persona that, although could be mistaken for a dumb blonde, wasn't somebody you should underestimate. Or cross, for that matter, when it comes to those she cared for.
I don't get coffee, Mr. Carlson. We agreed.
Arthur Carlson, otherwise known as the Big Guy, was played by Gordon Jump. He employed Jennifer, and although she didn't do much secretarial work, she provided the necessary nurturing that his mother, Mama Carlson, the owner of the radio station, never could. However, during a stint as an on-air advice columnist, she resigns after a woman calls about being abused, in what Jennifer blames on her cute, flippant response to this woman, and says she'll sit in her little chair and keep her mouth shut. She doesn't want to be needed, but it's Mr. Carlson that shows her she does.
What's wrong?
My train's broken.
Frank Bonner, I said Bonner, was the gaudy-styled salesman Herb Tarlick, an unhappily married smarmy slimeball and a lech, especially when it came to Jennifer. But she could handle herself. A character like this would barely be allowed to live today, let alone exist on TV. Which is sad, since we all know someone who can successfully be both disgusting and heartwarming at times. Just a few times. Okay, maybe like twice. But Jennifer sure thought so.
Well, I like him. It's crazy, but I like him.
Even trying to convince Lucille, Herb's wife, played by the incomparable Edie McClurg, to take her back. And then again to convince a client to reconsider pulling his ads because of a huge mistake Herb made.
And I'm the one who sent him over here, and I don't want him to get fired.
So you took it upon yourself to come down here and change my mind, right?
Yes.
Dr. Johnny Fever, one of the best DJs ever, was a hit on the show. Unlike Herb, Johnny was playful in his come-ons to Jennifer, and she ate it up. Jennifer felt for Fever regarding his difficult upbringing, ex-wife, his debt, termination and hard times in radio, his estranged daughter, and the obvious but veiled substance issues.
Oh, listen, Fever, those brownies, I want them.
That were ultimately censored by CBS. She would do almost anything for him, and he would do the same for her. When he pondered leaving for another radio station for more money, she made sure to turn on the sex appeal at the farewell dinner, trying her best to convince him to stay at the station.
I'm really going to miss you, Johnny.
Now, Les Nessman was a quirky on-air personality, the newsman that had been at the station so long that he believed he deserved a real office. To demonstrate his own self-importance, he even taped office walls around his desk, going as far as to open and close the imaginary door behind him and demanding people to knock. Sheltered by his mother, also played by Sanders, Les had always had to practice violin instead of playing ball. But when it came to the WKRP softball game, Jennifer was there, in short shorts, of course. When his other teammates had little faith, she was forever the cheerleader. Because Jennifer was the smart one, you'd expect the executives to pull a Three's Company and balance her out with a ditz for the secondary female.
We have all kinds of chairs. There's one over there, and there's another one over there, and then, no, that's a clock.
But they took the high road with another smart character, this time a brunette. Jan Smithers had become famous after a Newsweek photographer took a photo of her on a motorcycle at the beach in 1966. Here she was now playing Bailey Quarters, a junior executive with a journalism degree. There was no rivalry between the two women in the show. They couldn't have been farther apart and different in personality, but all they did was support one another. Bailey would even cover the desk for Jennifer. WKRP had no room for a Chrissy Snow. In a sad twist, Jennifer's character took a while to really get a good handle on. But Venus Flytrap, the second and popular DJ of the station, remained a lot more window dressing throughout the entire series. The writers wanted to develop him into something more than the typical black sitcom character, but struggled to break free from those tired tropes, trying various story elements throughout. Finally, they handed him some respect as assistant program manager under Andy. With that said, it's kind of unfortunate that neither Jennifer or Venus got to spend any quality time together throughout the series. Andy Travis may very well have been smitten with her, but he was a gentleman. Jennifer and Andy got along with extreme mutual respect, and she did her best to make him feel more at ease during a charity photo shoot. Odd that somebody who strutted his moose knuckle around with such confidence couldn't bear to bear it all in a Speedo. Andy recognized her importance at WKRP and her effectiveness, and in an effort to elevate the station, he gave her carte blanche to redecorate the lobby. Upon her stunning refurbishment, she said,
Visitors will be very impressed until they talk to someone.
It's like she fully understood what everybody else was learning to see clearly.
WKRP is a very unusual radio station. We hire some people that otherwise couldn't get jobs at another radio station.
Now, if you found it difficult enjoying time with Jennifer or any of your favorite characters from WKRP in the last few decades, you're not alone. Blame the music. WKRP would have been very different without it. It was the use of the modern 70s and 80s sounds that connected with much of the audience. Blondie's 1979 Heart of Glass was well known to have owed much of its popularity to the play it got on WKRP. So much so that Chrysalis Records awarded the production with a gold record of the album. You can see it in the bullpen during the series. Although the licensing fees were incredible by using videotape, those agreements do expire, and when they finally did, the show lost a lot of its energy and resonance when the real songs were replaced with generic studio-created, rock-style, royalty-free music in the reruns. And getting it on physical media was almost impossible. Often when it played in reruns, or even on the first DVD release of Season 1, they had to resort to sound-alikes, re-recording dialogue spoken over popular songs, or worse, cut scenes altogether. How can you have Les shimmying on his macho wig without Hot-Blooded blaring behind him? Music was so important to the show from the beginning to the end. From the opening theme song that jump starts after those wild lines are played while the guy tunes the car radio, all the way to the madcap and nonsensical closing credits sung by Jim Ellis.
Could not explain his nudity.
The end credits music was intended as a demo reel. The gibberish was so loved ironically because of what millions of people considered rock and roll to sound like, it became official. Even Jennifer's glamorous high-rise had musical styling as her doorbell played Fly Me to the Moon.
It's open. Come on in and put it with the others.
Until the licensing deal forced it to change to Beautiful Dreamer. In the mid-2000s, Shout Factory promised the most loyal reproduction of the original broadcast as possible. People were skeptical, But in the end, the set featured the Rolling Stones, Bruce Springsteen, AC/DC, Eric Clapton, Bob Marley, The Doors, Grateful Dead, Blondie, Tom Petty, The Cars, Elvis Costello, Marvin Gaye, Paul McCartney, Wings, Van Morrison, The Police, Otis Redding, and more. Even the cut scenes that hadn't been seen since the beginning were restored, making this a more faithful presentation and the original intent of the episodes, assuring the legacy of the show and Jennifer's doorbell chimes. WKRP did not have the time on the air it deserved. If it had found a secure time slot, I believe it could have kept going and more audiences would have learned to love this zany ensemble. As it is, the most recent DVD release is such a wonderful gift for the world to discover or rediscover the magic the show provided us during an incredible time of our lives. This wasn't All in the Family, but it certainly wasn't Facts of Life. It aired during an era that could capture young and old, and although the show was not one to exploit very special episodes, it did tackle tough topics like abortion, before it became taboo to talk about like today. Other sensitive subjects were done, but without force-feeding or playing down to the audience. It was smart television. In Concert was an amazing episode straight out of real life. WKRP promotes free tickets to the infamous concert by The Who in Cincinnati that tragically took the life of a number of young concert goers. This episode aired only months after the real thing and was a huge risk for the studio. But showcasing the guilt the characters felt about it and the changes that the tragedy would cause made for a fitting tribute. Filthy Pictures was another serious topic for the show, where an unscrupulous photographer takes nude photos of Jennifer without her knowledge. He then blackmails her with threats of selling to an adult magazine. Well, the station goes on high alert, breaking several laws. The entire cast of the show go in on a plot to foil those plans. The men are all in to save her honor, including Herb, who pretends to be gay for the photographer, which ends up fruitless, but funny. Don't you miss classic TV? In the end, when the opportunity presents itself, none of the guys peek at the photos. Jennifer means a lot more to them than that, and she did to the rest of the world as well. Sure, you could comb the back of Spencer's or the poster spool at your record store and find this beauty that rivals Miss Fawcett's. But Jennifer Marlowe and Loni Anderson were more than this, but she wasn't afraid to embrace it either. Don't you hate it when a favorite show does not get the series finale it deserves? WKRP was like that. Well, sort of. Without even knowing it, the perfect series finale aired as the last episode of Season 4. Although it was not the last episode shot. The cast and crew would not find out until the summer that the show was canceled. But the story of the little station that could, celebrating finally being on the top, only to have it threaten to come crashing down around them, was a great send-off. In the end, a hero, probably the one that made the most sense, Dr. Johnny Fever, saves the future of the station from Mrs. Carlson. An unexpected series finale can work, maybe even better than if it had been planned. Instead of giving rushed exits to the characters and conclusions or stories that seem forced or surprising, the episode was an incredible series finale that left the viewer enjoying the oblivious and celebrating cast, none the wiser of what had just unfolded, free to return to the chaos that is the normal operation of WKRP. The station was number 6 in the Cincinnati local market by the end of the series. The actual TV show itself ended number 7 in the Nielsen ratings. You've got to agree, it had a lot more life to live. An undeniable classic, WKRP would have a sequel series from 1991 to 1993. All but Andy and Bailey's characters returned as regulars or guest stars. That gave them all a little last hurrah, but nothing can measure up to the OG. As for Loni Anderson, who we honor with a look back at the show that made her a star, I realize she made other great contributions to her craft. Sadly forgettable forays into Golden Age Hollywood, portraying the likes of Jane Mansfield and Thelma Todd, as well as the doomed spy show Partners in Crime with Linda Carter. It could have worked. Of course, she would feature on her husband's game show, Win, Lose, or Draw. And in 2023, surprising everyone in a Lifetime movie, Ladies of the 80s, A Diva Christmas, with Morgan Fairchild, Donna Mills, Linda Gary, and more. But it will always be WKRP that we will remember. We won't forget the show or the cast either, and are reminded that Loni Anderson will be known for more than her marriage to and turbulent divorce from Burt Reynolds, but for Jennifer Marlowe, who will live forever in the Jen experience. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll check out more on the channel and come back soon. Until next time.
Here's the one person no man in his right mind could say goodbye to. Jennifer Marlowe.